This was where he lived as well as worked, evidently. The interview had taken place in the dining room, which had been transformed into a kind of office. Passing the living room, Daisy winced at the rock music she had been hearing, without registering it, ever since she had entered the house. She looked in and saw a boy about Donnie's age lying on a sofa with a book. Another boy and girl were playing ping pong in front of the fireplace. "You have several here together?" Daisy asked Cal. "Oh, sometimes they stay on after their session, just to rap. They're a pretty sociable group all in all. Plenty of goof-offs like young Donnie here." He cupped Donnie's shoulder playfully. Donnie flushed and grinned. Climbing into the car, Daisy asked Donnie, "Well, what do you think?" But Donnie had returned to his old evasive self. He jerked his chin toward the garage. "Look," he said, "he's got a basketball net." Now, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they had supper early, the instant Matt came home. Sometimes they had to leave before they were really finished. Amanda would be eating her dessert. "Bye, honey, sorry," Daisy would tell her. Cal's first bill sent a flutter of panic through Daisy's chest. But it was worth it, of course. Just look at Donnie's face when they picked him up, alight and full of interest. The principal telephoned Daisy to tell her how Donnie had improved. Of course, it hasn't shown up in his grades yet, but several of his teachers have noticed his attitude change. "Yes, sir, I think we're on to something here." At home, Donnie didn't act much different. He still seemed to have a low opinion of his parents, but Daisy supposed that was unavoidable, part of being 15. He said his parents were too controlling, a word that made Daisy give him a sudden look. He said they acted like wardens. On weekends, they enforced a curfew, and at any time he went to a party, they always telephoned first to see if adults would be supervising. "For God's sake," he said, "don't you trust me?" "It isn't a matter of trust, honey." But there was no explaining to him. His tutor called one afternoon. "I get the sense," he said, "that this kid's feeling underestimated, like you folks expect the worst of him. I'm thinking we ought to give him more rope." "But see, he's still so suggestible," Daisy said. "When his friends suggest some mischief, smoking or drinking or such, why, he just finds it hard not to go along with them." "Mrs. Cobble," the tutor said, "I think this kid is hurting, Here's a serious, sensitive kid telling you he'd like to take on some grown-up challenges, and you're giving him the message that he can't be trusted? Don't you understand how that hurts?" "Oh," said Daisy, "it undermines his self-esteem. Don't you realize that?" "Well, I guess you're right," said Daisy. She saw Donnie suddenly from a whole new angle. His pathetically poor posture, that slouch so forlorn that his shoulders seemed about to meet his chin. Ugh, wasn't it awful being young? She had a miserable adolescence herself and had always sworn no child of hers would ever be that unhappy. They let Donnie stay out later. They didn't call ahead to see if parties were supervised, and they were careful not to grill him about his evening. The tutor had set so many rules. They were not allowed any questions at all about any aspect of school, nor were they to speak with his teachers. If a teacher had some complaint, she should phone Cal. Only one teacher disobeyed, the history teacher, Miss Evans. She called one morning in February. "I'm a little concerned about Donnie, Mrs. Cobble." "Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Evans, but Donnie's tutor handles these things now."